Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is Supporting Incoming Law Students Across New York State, Strategies for Attorney Wellbeing, and this is put on by the Attorney Wellbeing Subcommittee on on Law Education and Early Engagement. And so with that, I'd like to introduce today's moderator, Rosemary Queenan. I'll pass it over to you, Rosemary. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jen. And thanks to everyone for being here. Welcome to the New York State Bar Association's program, Supporting Incoming Law Students Across New York State, which is dedicated to fostering student well-being in law school. We really appreciate you being here today. We are joined by the members of the Committee on Attorney Wellbeing and the Subcommittee on Law Education and Early Engagement. You'll see this is a list of all of our members, and we are so pleased that many of them are here to share some insight with you and to participate in this event, including Jen Clayton. Jen, thank you very much. She is the NYSBA Staff Liaison and Program Manager. Christian Cruzado, Lynn Sue, Martha Ricardo, Rosemary Bailey, Lauren Breslow, and Wendy Chait are all here joining us today. And you can see we have some other members who weren't able to be here. So thank you all for being here as well. The committee's mission and goal is to implement recommendations made by the New York State Bar Association Task Force on Attorney Wellbeing, including providing programs and resources that support a culture of well-being in law school and in the legal profession. In furtherance of our mission, we developed this program for incoming law students. As you begin this challenging yet very rewarding journey, we developed this program to offer you the opportunity to speak with members of the committee, current law students, and recent graduates about some of the strategies, tools, and resources that are available to promote mental health, balance, and well-being throughout your academic journey. We will explore various topics, including stress management techniques, mindfulness practices, effective study habits, and the importance of building a supportive community. We will also introduce you to the New York State Bar Association's 8 pillars of well-being, as you can see here. And finally, we will share resources that are available to you as a new member of the New York legal community. We will also take questions in the chat or at the end of the program. We realize that some of you may not be able to turn on your video, but if you are able and comfortable doing so, we encourage you to do so. We want to encourage a sense of community, open dialogue, support, and mentorship as you navigate the exciting challenges ahead. Together, we hope to create a culture of wellness that empowers you to thrive both academically and personally. While we transition to the first part of the program, we invite you to send a message in the chat if you're an incoming law student and where you'll be attending. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat as we proceed with the program, or you can send a private message to any one of us as well. Okay, thank you. We got the chat started. And while you're doing that, we will read your messages, but I want to introduce Christian Cruzado, who's a member of the committee, who will be moderating a panel of current students and recent law graduates. Thank you, Christian.
All right. Thanks, Rosemary. My name is Christian Cruzado. I'm currently practicing attorney at Seeger and Shortino in Rochester, New York. I graduated law school from the University of Buffalo in 2022. While I was there, I quickly got involved in student well-being. I started my own student organization. It was called the Student Wellness Society. Basically, it was similar goals as the Attorney Wellbeing Committee, but for law students. Trying to acknowledge that law students do go through some difficult things. Whether that's law school in and of itself or something else. So I tried to get involved in that capacity, and lo and behold, ended up on the Attorney Wellbeing Committee, and here I am. So I'm going to be hosting the student panel today. It's going to quickly go through, have everybody do just a very quick introduction, where they went to school, or where they're attending school, and just show their faces before they speak. So I'll start with Kumiko.
Yes, hi, my name is Kumiko. I am a 3L graduating in very soon, actually, December 2025, and I go to Albany Law.
All right, thanks, Kumiko. And Phoebe, are you there?
Hi. I graduated from New York Law School in 2024, and I'm currently a capital markets associate at Debevoise in Plimpton.
And Marco?
Hi, my name is Marco Caprioni. I'm a recent graduate of Pace Law School and also just recently sat for the bar exam just a short week ago. And I'm an incoming associate at Goldberg and Segala, working in their workers' compensation department.
All right, and last but not least, we have Matt.
Hi everyone, Matt Gillam. I'm a rising, or I guess now just a 3L. And I go to Fordham and I'll graduate in May 2026. So I will overlap with all the folks that are going to Fordham in this call.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we're just going to kind of jump in here. We're going to, have a little bit of an open discussion as to, what people have experienced in law school, what kinds of things they've gone through and what types of things that they've done to get by. All right, so my first question is, how did you find time to be intentional about your well-being through law school, and despite the heavy demands? So we'll start with you, Marco.
So I'm a scheduler by nature. Try to allocate my time accordingly and kind of map out my week and daily tasks that I need to accomplish. However, as law school progressed and I got to learn how, to deal with the heavy course load and the demands, I added activities into my daily schedule that, are predicated towards wellness, what I would look forward to throughout the week, whether that be going outside, seeing friends and family, have stuff to kind of balance out the work week with. And I think that's very important because law school is really, a demanding, quite, a jump from undergrad to law school. And, it's going to offer many professional and learning experiences throughout, albeit demanding. But to combine that with a good foundation and a good mindset will allow students to maximize on their success and have that healthy dose of wellness to live by. So that's kind of how I navigated the demands of law school.
All right. Thanks, Marco. And exactly did you do that? Were you just keeping a calendar throughout your law school, kind of keeping that updated and managing it through that way?
Yeah, I would say try to outline my week each Sunday. What tasks I want to get done, throughout the week, what I want to get, on the weekend, how can I allocate my time accordingly there? And kind of the way I worked about it was, I wanted to get my tasks done early, throughout the week, and then, at night have things to settle down with, maintain my wellness that way. And really, throughout law school, you get to learn what works and what doesn't work for you. Some like to do work early in the morning. Some like to stay up later at night. It's all about kind of learning what works best and incorporating wellness through that.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. Kumiko, I'm going to toss over that same question to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I am the Colby Fellow with the Mental Health and Wellness Initiative at Albany Law. So we really prioritize mental health and well-being. And I think one thing that we really do focus on is maybe you don't have the 2 hours that day to kind of allocate to whatever you want to do, but even a 5-minute walk, just something for yourself that day, that's really important to us and something we definitely encourage one else to do in Albany Law. Yeah, and I think just, just staying true to your hobbies. I think one thing that I am really big on is that you are an individual before you started law school and you're an individual during law school. So just staying with that and keeping with your identity and not forgetting the fact that there was a person before law school and to still take the time to spend time with the people that you love, take the walk, work out. I'm the 5 a.m. girl, so I do a lot of my workouts. I do all of my schoolwork really, really early in the morning. I'm not someone who does the all-nighters. And I also think just finding what works for you because you're an individual just as much as everyone else. So figuring out that not everyone's schedule works for you and someone who maybe was bragging the day before about staying up or doing an all-nighter studying, that might not be you and that might not work for you, but it doesn't mean your grades are going to be any less.
Matt, I see you shaking your head. Do you have something to add?
Well, yes and no. I reflect everything that has already been said. I think I really connect with the keeping the parts of yourself like you're an individual through law school as well. I think I before I went to law school, I was a public school teacher. I taught first grade. And I did a very bad job as a teacher of like turning it off. I was talking about teaching all the time. Every single friend and family member I could get my hands on knew all the names of my students. It was my 24-hour a day thing. Like it was, I wore it really on my sleeve, which was great. But I came into law school and I was like, I'm going to force myself to do a better job of turning it off. And so I happen to do no schoolwork at home. Like that was my boundary. That doesn't necessarily have to be how you all do it, but I think being intentional about properly turning off um, like law school, like turning off 1L and coming home and playing a video game that rots your brain. Or I read the Percy Jackson books through 1L because it felt like something silly to get to read to like be able to turn off the kind of thinking about class. Um, and to that end, I think Marco like kind of touched on this. You know yourself best, so whatever that looks like for you, I think is the best way to do it. All of us provide insight, and you're going to get bombarded, and rightfully so, when you get to your schools with all the most incredible advice you can imagine. And the task you have is taking that advice and synthesizing it such that it works for yourself, because ultimately you're going to know yourself best. People told me to treat it like a 9 to 5. And that really works for some people, but I'm great in the morning. So like really for me, it was like a 7 to 3. Like and that worked better. So I think all of that, like keeping your in the broadest sense, keeping yourself kind of centered and knowing yourself well is going to serve you all well as one else for sure.
Yeah, I think that point about disconnecting is really important. I think there was times where like you'd feel so engrossed in schoolwork, you'd literally start dreaming about case laws and stuff. And people say that as kind of a joke, but it's literally true. Um, all right, so I'm going to move on. So my next question that I'm going to pose to the group is, what were some ways that you found self-compassion despite feeling, whatever you felt during law school? Maybe that was imposter syndrome, perfectionism, anxiety, whatever. Phoebe, I'll toss that over to you.
Yeah, sure. I think that advice that really helped me through law school, and someone had already kind of touched on this about comparison. There's a quote like comparison is the thief of joy. And I think something that helped me center during law school and not become too overwhelmed by all of the stress and just the fact that you are graded on a curve and there is inherent comparison in law school, is just to kind of do your own thing and find ways to, like everyone said, make law school work for you, whether that's working really early in the morning or finding ways to work out in the middle of the day if if you need to de-stress, eating healthy, different little things just to kind of keep your mental health overall in check. I think then spills over into how you can perform in law school, because being like stress is natural. Having an exam where your whole grade is riding on it, it's stressful and that's normal, but not letting that overwhelm you. And I think kind of having a good foundation of mental wellness throughout the process of the semester will help you when things really do ramp up, and just not really comparing to what other people are doing. So do your own thing. What works for you will work for you. And yeah, just kind of keeping your side of the street clean.
Awesome, thanks, Phoebe. And Kumiko, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so I am a first generation law student as well as a commuter student. So I think just like I said, understanding that schedules are different, and also just giving yourself the grace and the ability to kind of be a 1L, have that learning experience. And I think knowing that not everyone wanted to be a lawyer since they were 5 years old, and not everyone knows the field they want when they go into law school. I think from my experience, a lot of students struggle with the fact that they don't know what field of law they want once they're out, and they don't or they change. Maybe they change fields. Maybe they really, really want it. I know from my perspective, I really was convinced I wanted environmental law and real estate going into law school. And now I am an intern for the district attorney's office, and I can't see myself doing anything other than prosecuting. So it's just kind of giving yourself the grace to change and be flexible in that sense as well. And also understanding the fact that if you are a first gen law student, that the connections take time, and you just kind of giving yourself that opportunity to grow in law school, that you're not going to have everything figured out in the beginning. So I think that's where the compassion comes in as well.
Yeah, awesome. Marco or Matt, either of you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Marco. I think I think all of that is super spot on. I think the answer to most questions you'll have 1L, and the answer to like most problems you'll have is to talk to people around you. And I mean that in two ways. One, I'm going to hype up Fordham here, especially Marta, who's in this call. Fordham has a really excellent house system where students are kind of bucketed off. Full-time students are into 4 houses that all have a student leader. I was one of them last year. I will be this year. And when I was 1L, I was like, it's my mission to become friends with my the student in charge of my house fellow, because she had insight about just about everything, right? And now she's off clerking on a federal court, and she's a brilliant both professional and personal connection for me. And I made a friend fairly early on in 1L that like our established and explicit system was that we could talk about the kind of hard things. And so all that is to say is I think the resources around you like are there for you to use them, right? And the people around you are there for you to use them. And I think when you're feeling the big imposter syndrome or the like you're struggling to find compassion for yourself, like ask folks to help you find it, right? And I certainly leaned into all the Fordham resources I possibly could. And I know that those exist at all the other schools that are represented in this call. So I recommend, to the extent that you're comfortable, leaning into the people and resources at your school to like give you the boost when you can't give it to yourself, right? And Lord knows I've done that, and I plan on continuing to do it as a 3L.
Yeah. Was there like a specific time, if you're comfortable sharing, that you like recall reaching out for help?
Yeah, I had the 1L internship hunt was very challenging for me. I made a decision, an ill-advised decision, but to the extent that you're taking what I'm about to say as functional advice for your own eventual internship search, file it away for very long from now. I applied to one job, which I knew somebody who worked there from my undergrad, who was a good friend of mine, and like put in a word, and I was like, oh, no brainer, I'm gonna get that. And I decided to not apply anywhere else. That's generally speaking poor thinking. You want to cast a broader net than that. And they kind of dragged me along for a month. And then I found myself like the last one in my 1L friend group to like still be looking for an internship. I was bummed. Like I worked really hard. Like I really kind of thought that I had this thing in the bag that I was kind of excited about. And it didn't work out. And I immediately started asking people and poking around, and like kind of tail between my legs, went to a professor who's fairly serious, who had my 1L fall. And I was just like, hey, I'm having a hard time. Like, can you help me out? And he connected me with people that did help me out, right? Like he reached out to a former student that worked at this place on my behalf, and helped facilitate that for me. And he's even like, this particular professor is one that folks think is like a little cold, and he was overwhelmingly warm and positive about helping me out. So all of that is to say is like I think the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? And I think advocating for yourself by talking to people about these things works out. And then yeah, did it take a while for me to get an internship? Yes, but I will say I probably had the most fulfilling experience of the folks that I knew 1L, because I ended up at a place that really matched me, and the attorneys I worked under were just tremendous and like matched me both personality wise and professionally. So I think the good things take time, and particularly take you kind of poking around on your own behalf. Bang. I lost your audio, Christian.
Yeah, I think we lost you. Matt, that was great though. Really appreciate it. Marco, I think you were gonna join, or you had something to add too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just speaking on imposter syndrome first, I think students can get lost in the stresses of law school, especially with the competitive atmosphere and the comparison aspect, as was discussed. And with that, students could lose that sense of fulfillment. And I think it's vital for students to, understand their goals, as to why they chose law school in the first place. And working towards those aspirations will enable that drive and that will to succeed. And with comparison, all paths are super unique and are individual lies towards those goals and intentions. And just, keep pushing forward, keep going, and just know that everything will work out if you put the work in. And also to Matt's point in terms of guidance, and I think there's a lot of people you can lean on throughout the law school journey. I think first, your peers, a lot of the stresses that an incoming 1L is maybe feeling, more often than not, those stresses are felt amongst, the class as a whole. And I think going through those experiences, together and, building a good support system inside the classroom with people going through the same thing, I think that's really important. I think leaning on your support system outside the classroom, friends, family, you name it, is also important too, again, to kind of have that balance between, in school and out of school. And I think professors as well. I think, there are professors who want to see you succeed. And, if a wellness issue, comes up, you can talk to them and discuss it with them. And, they'll be in your corner. They've been through the law school process, they've practiced law, and they're going to be there to help you out, motivate you, and be a great resource throughout the journey.
Awesome. All right, my back. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Back.
All right. Sorry about that. All right. So next question I'd like to pose, and I'll throw this to you, Phoebe. Was there anything in law school that you would have done differently?
That's a great question. I think definitely having the perspective now, being over a year out of law school, I just don't think it's obviously a very serious time in your life, and it does really matter how your grades are, and it helps you get a job. But in the scheme of things, like your rank isn't going to matter once you start your job. Your B- on your exam isn't going to matter. No one's going to question you on your contracts essay, your 1L first semester. Law school doesn't come up as much as I expected it to. It really doesn't come up at all. And I think just to not sweat the small stuff, focus on getting through it and learning as much as you can and taking electives that are interesting to you, because you're going to find yourself in a career that, probably isn't going to have all the interesting things that you could have learned in law school. So just really take advantage of that time as a student and know that whatever happens in 2 years really isn't going to matter.
Cool. Anything to add to that, Kumiko?
I would say to get involved sooner. I think I mentioned I'm a commuter student, so it was kind of hard for me to get involved my first year, especially getting used to the rigor of law school and classes. But I think getting involved is extremely integral into getting to know your classmates. I think a lot of people see law school as this competitive thing, and just knowing that they're people too, they have imperfections as well, and they just don't have it as all together as they may seem to portray during class time, at least. So I think getting to know them, and getting involved and finding things that you love, do the organizations. As I mentioned, I'm the Colby Fellow, so that's something that I've been extremely grateful for throughout my law school career. I'm also a student ambassador at Albany Law, so I give the tours, so that's been really fun for me. But it's just little things like that, and giving yourself that time. And even though you might have an exam the next week, there's always going to be another exam. There's always going to be another class you have to study for. Taking the time. And I think a lot of students don't feel like it, especially when these events are at night. A lot of students don't want to go back to school or go back to campus after that. But taking the initiative to do that, especially networking or not networking events, because I think a lot of students prioritize the networking events, and that they also kind of have to keep themselves turned on for that as well. So I think going to the events that maybe are just for fun, go to like one of the painting events or one of just the fun events to socialize and kind of have fun, and just, yeah, I would say get involved as much as you can.
Awesome. Now, I do want to ask you a little bit more about your commute. So, just because there might be students who are probably at least considering, something similar, can you give a little bit more information about that? Like, how far are you commuting? What does that look like for you? How are you setting up your schedule? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. So I commute a little bit over an hour. I'm from Port Union, New York, so that's like Hudson Valley. So Albany is a little over an hour from where I'm from. But I think honestly, as much as it may sound like it takes kind of more of a toll, I've been really grateful for it, because all my friends, all of my family, my whole support system is in the Hudson Valley and in where I'm from. So I think just kind of being outside of the law school bubble kind of helped me separate it a little bit more from law school, because a lot of students I knew, they were on campus and they were staying maybe a minute from campus, and that just kind of kept them within the law school bubble 24/7, whether it was a weekend, whether it was a day off. So being able to turn it off, go home, and just kind of spend time with the people that I love. And my family has been truly supportive of it. A lot of times, my mom drives me up to school just so I can study in the car. So just things like that. So I've been really grateful for the fact that I am a commuter. It's been hard. It's been different. It's been unique. I'm not gonna lie, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Kumiko. All right. Marco, anything that you would have done differently throughout your process in law school?
Yeah, I would definitely say Professor Brezzo and I have talked about the growth mindset. I think enabling that early on would have been extremely helpful. Challenges and battling through some adversities in law school, they're bound to come about. And I think treating those experiences with a positive attitude will really go a long way in a student's overall growth. Like for example, that first graded writing assignment, can really be daunting, and getting it back from a professor, having a lot of red lines, a lot of mistakes, throughout the essay could, really mess with your confidence. And law in and of itself is like mastering a new language. It's really, it takes time to, learn and to master. And I think instead of being defeated and kind of being overwhelmed, I think there's a way to flip that and view it with the positive lens, really see where your professor's coming from, maybe meet with them, maybe analyze your mistakes and make sure, that won't happen for the next time. So I think really just encompassing an overall positive attitude, knowing that being a 1L is a learning and growing experience, and just trying to get better day in and day out. That's probably what I would have done differently early on.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Matt, anything else to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, I think I certainly echo what all the other panelists have said. I have a vivid memory of my 1L fall, like 2 weeks before finals started, or in the run up kind of to finals. One of my closest friends from undergrad was in town from San Francisco and having this big birthday dinner. And I was so torn for like a month leading up to it, about whether or not I should go. I like truthfully, I was really in my head about it. Like I was going to sleep thinking about it and waking up thinking about it. And I ended up going, which was obviously on so many levels the right decision. But I think really so important, like to be shameless about like maintaining your personhood, and to be shameless about like doing things that fill your bucket, and to like not lose sleep over them. Like spinning your wheels is just like time lost to nothing. And so I think like both from an efficiency standpoint, but also from a kind of personal and emotional standpoint, I certainly would have gone through 1L more shameless about doing the things that I cared about and like seeing the people I cared about, and like doing the stuff I wanted to do, right? Like I think that is something I certainly would have kind of approached 1L with. And then kind of the other side of that coin, and I apologize if I sound ridiculous, it's all networking. Like, I would have approached 1L with that mindset. Every person you're around is going to become a lawyer, and they're going to be your peers and your colleagues and people at different firms and people doing different work and whatever. And so I think on the one hand, you should view all of these new interactions as the incredibly exciting opportunity they are to like build this ridiculously robust network of legal professionals. But also you should go in with the mindset that like these are future colleagues and peers, right? And I both like would lean into the exciting parts and have a mindset that you're going to make friends and all of these things. But you sure should view everybody as a person that is potentially a connection worth keeping. And I think that like some people do crazy stuff 1L because 1L is so crazy. Like don't be that one. And I think to the extent that you like to the extent that people sometimes are less than savory in law school at every law school, that's something that they maintain for a long time. And so I'd be very careful about that. Sounds more dramatic than I intended it. But these are all people that are going to stay with you for a long time. And I would have gone back and learned that lesson earlier on, because I think it really holds true.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I think that especially regarding connections, I mean, even in practice, once you're out of law school too, the connections dictate. The only reason I found the job that I'm at now is because my girlfriend's mom is my boss's wife's massage therapist, right? Like, it's so far out there, but you just never know. And if you treat people right and you're willing to put yourself out there and, take a risk, even to just introduce yourself to somebody, you have no idea how well that's going to pay off. I think that's really, really important. Especially, as you're going about things and going into your 1L, internships and all that stuff. But, people at the schools will talk to you about that, but it's great. All right. So I asked this a little bit before, but, and Matt, you already answered to this, but I'm going to open this to everybody else. Is there a time where, as far as you're comfortable sharing, a time where you needed help and went out and sought it, and what was that like? If anybody would like to answer.
I can start. So I was a transfer student from my first year to second year, so I kind of experienced that 1L feel twice almost, kind of getting accustomed to a new environment for that second year and trying to balance a heightened course load, being that a lot of my credits didn't ultimately transfer over, so kind of being a little bit behind credit wise from my fellow classmates, balancing that, balancing work, outside law school, responsibilities, clinics, trying to get that overall balance was tough, and I definitely couldn't have done it alone. So I think reaching out to those professors, reaching out to your support system to help guide you through the way, I think is a way that I approached it. Know that you can't do it alone, and there's people who want to help you, and there's people who want to see you succeed, no matter how big the challenge it may be.
Awesome, thanks, Marco. Kumiko, Phoebe, either of you have anything to add?
I don't remember a specific time, but I think in general throughout law school and then especially during bar prep, which is very far away for all of you incoming students, don't worry about it yet. There were just countless times where I was so thankful to have a good support system of family, of friends, of professors, peers at school who you could just vent to and, say, I need to go on a walk, I need to stop studying, I need to have dinner and just like blow off steam. And despite what I said about comparison being the thief of joy, do remember that everyone around you is as stressed as you are. So just know that if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's very normal. And, reach out when you can and don't feel like I think someone mentioned, failing just because you're kind of floundering in this one class or you just like are so overwhelmed and really need a break. Take those breaks, ask for help where you need to. I also was really big on asking questions in class, which is kind of a separate topic, but go to your professor's office hours and don't just kind of struggle with it alone. There's a million resources on YouTube and all different places where not everything's going to click, and it's okay. And use the resources that you have at school and in your community.
Yeah, I think that's great. You might not always need help per se, but things happen in life, something tragic could happen, somebody in your family could pass, or you could be sick, even something small. Communicating that to your professors is huge. A lot of the times a deadline, like, it's okay if it's a day or two late, as long as you communicated that to them beforehand and you gave them a reasoning why. A lot of the times people are going to work with you. Life goes on, and that's just, it is what it is. I think the important thing to really take away from that is to continue to communicate with the people that are around you. And if you do need help, hopefully you can develop those relationships and find somebody that you trust to ask. All right. Can we go anything?
I would say that just kind of dealing with kind of asking for help also comes along with kind of, I think like 99.9% of students that go into law school are very type A or are very perfectionist. So I think knowing the fact that and understanding that law school is a very different beast than undergrad, and you might not have that 4.0 after your 1L year that you had in undergrad, and that doesn't make it, you know, like you, I think a lot of students, especially after their first semester, feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be in law school. Maybe this isn't meant for me. So I think part of asking for help is kind of letting go of the perfectionism and letting go, not fully, because I think everyone's going to stay type A pretty much, but kind of letting go a little bit of that type A and kind of knowing that it's okay and that law school is very different. It's a very different entity in and of itself, and just kind of accepting it for what it is.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. That's about all I have. So I'm going to pass this back over to Jen and continue on our way.
Thank you for moderating that panel, Christian, and thank you to all of our speakers. We do have time, so I'd love if there are questions from any of the participant on the panel or on the presentation. You can submit them anonymously via the Q&A, or just use the chat if you have any questions for our student panel. Certainly want to hear them and answer them if we can. I'm sure there's a lot of uncertainty ruminating under the surface.
Hello, can I just ask it through here, or do you want me to
That
type?
would be great. Yeah, welcome.
I just want to say, like, you guys touched on a lot of things that I didn't even think about, and they may seem like what a reasonable person thinks about, but I mean, thank you guys for really, like, you know, giving me direction. I'm an LLM, so I'm not a 1L, but it's still really helpful to, you know, see what you guys have been through and to take it, and hopefully I can pass it to my peers, as you say, because, like, I believe in what you believe, like, by communicating and networking with others, you know, that's how we get somewhere. Anywho, I was just wondering what kind of group games or you know, kind of yeah, just games or yeah, interactions could you recommend, you know, just to like break the ice between the incoming LLMs, because I'm a representative, so I want to kind of break the ice, push them, you know, away from their shyness.
I'll say not a game. However, the first day of orientation for Fordham at least is 2 weeks from today. And we have a scheduled social event afterwards. And just like the fact that we're outside of the law school and there's no faculty around is enough loosening of the kind of screws that everybody can hang out and get along. And so and I truthfully, like, my equivalent now 2 years ago, I met some of my friends that have remained my closest friends and like nicest and most sincere confidants through law school. And so to the extent that you can just facilitate a space where people can just loosen up a little bit, I think that you'll have tremendous success in achieving that goal.
Thanks, Matt. We have a ton of questions coming in, so I'm going to try and round robin them, and feel free to try and jump in. I think a main one, I see a lot of reactions as well, lots of exclamation point emojis, is how did you find the best method of studying? You know, I know a lot of people will just go to the library, and I didn't know how to study, so I would just be like, what are they doing there? So did you find any tactics that worked for you, flashcards, you know, apps, anything that worked well for law school?
I found one thing that did not work for me, which is study groups. They did not work for me. I think a lot of my friends, especially one all year, kind of got together and were like, oh, like let's study together, like let's kind of be miserable together, sort of thing. And I just realized that really did not work for me, and I am much more of an independent studier, and that's how I retain the most information. So I think just doing that, and I also I would say not to cram, like don't cram for any finals, don't cram for anything, do it. Do the outlines, because one thing about law school is there's not really homework or like really like daily assignments, and it's basically just reading. So a lot of students kind of, I found some students, you know, kind of skip the readings and kind of just didn't really cram until the very end of finals week. So I think just kind of keeping up with the readings, know what you understand, going to the office hours, so it's more of this gradual learning experience and more of this gradual way to retain the class rather than just cramming all of this information into the last few weeks before finals.
So
Yeah.
any, Phoebe, go ahead.
Oh, no, I would definitely second that. I was going to say, I don't think I fully knew what an outline was until very, very deep in my first semester of law school. Everyone was talking about it. We had sessions about it. It just wasn't clicking. Spoiler alert, it's just a study guide of your notes. But I think until I got to that point where I really figured it out, something that helped me, like Kumiko mentioned, is just staying on top of the reading and on the classes. Everything you're going to be tested on is going to be given to you either in your reading or what something your professor says. Nothing is a surprise. So if you just keep up with it and like slow and steady throughout the semester, that was my best tactic for how to kind of do well on exams, because as Kumiko mentioned, cramming really, really doesn't work and it just adds a ton of stress. And like I've kind of been saying, it's okay if you don't really know what's going on. It'll eventually click for you.
Thanks, Phoebe.
Yeah, I think I certainly would echo all of what they said. I think, and to ping pong off kind of Marianne's question, which is next, I certainly used Quimby. That was tremendously helpful. Like, I think all of these things, like every tool that is out there is helpful to someone in some way. I think to echo something we've all talked about prior is, like, you know yourself. I think there's this tendency to like talk about 1L and law school in general like it's reinventing the wheel. In many ways, it is not. Like, you know yourself on some level, and like you know what might be successful. And so I think you'll probably have a sense pretty quickly of like what is likely to work for you on some level. And then you got to try a couple things out. Like, I don't think it's as gargantuan as of a task as certainly I've been known to say it might be. I want to echo the study groups. I'm saying echo a lot. The study groups I think are great, and everybody does the 1L thing where they get sucked into a study group. I very quickly found out that a study group larger than 2 people just does not work for me. And I think the one universal truth about study habits is that like the larger a study group gets, the less likely it is to be tremendously successful. It's like the exception as opposed to the rule that like a 6-person study group really works out. Because you just don't really get enough airtime, and hearing isn't as great as actually doing. But regardless of what you try, I think you should be keeping tabs. If things are clicking in class on some level, you're following on some level, then you're probably heading on a semi-right path, right? You guys know the answers to these questions more than it might feel like you do at the beginning of 1L because of the kind of generalized chaos. But trust your gut. Ooh.
Yeah, I definitely think that's kind of the beauty of law school, and also the challenge is kind of learning, what works best for you, and you know yourself, better than anyone. And once you find something that does work for you, then stick with it and trust it. I was never the flashcard person, even studying for the bar exam. Everyone was like, definitely hone in on your flashcards, but I don't know, it just wasn't something that worked for me. But I was the student who, kept tabs with his outline, try to, update it every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or so, and like maybe start out with like a big outline, topics covered throughout the semester, and then like as time goes on, maybe condense it. Also handwrite it, like things you don't, get with a certain subject, kind of, get that type feel and the handwritten feel as muscle memory. So again, everyone's different. But you'll learn, as law school progresses, what does work and what doesn't, and you're gonna put your best foot forward no matter what.
Thanks, Mark. And Matt touched on this a few times, but I think everything in life is about like figuring out what works for you. There's going to be a tool and a resource and a support person for everything you're navigating. And it's more about figuring out which you're going to use and how you're going to use it. And so for some people, they're like, do not take my flashcards, like you can pry them from my dead hands. And then other people like Marco are like, yeah, I made them or didn't even, I know for me, I made flashcards and didn't use them through grad school, so that felt useless. So also don't like bully yourself into thinking it's gonna work for you if you know it's not. Like I just cramped up my hand and wasted a bunch of time with the flashcards that I could have probably done some self-care instead to just like chill out. Going off that, I think a huge question it's come up a few times in the anonymous Q&A as well as the chat. I would beg to assume a lot of you have it, is just like, what does the actual workload look like? It seems in one of the anonymous, I think there's maybe a common recommendation that there's 2 hours outside of each class. Each class hour, you need to spend 2 hours outside of class studying. Is that true? I think this will be really helpful for the part-time students. We have a lot of night students, part-time students that are really stressed about how they're going to manage the workload. So any guidance on, or just answers that are a little bit more detailed, then it's going to be heavy.
I think I mentioned law school, there's not really, like, when you think of school, it's not like nightly homework. There's not like assignments that are due by next Friday. I think I had one lawyering class my 1L year where I had a memo due at the end of the semester, but it's very longer term thinking, longer term projects. Even as a 2L, it's mostly papers or like a mock trial at the end. So it's very much preparing and gearing up for it throughout the semester. It's kind of choose your own journey in that way because let's say you don't feel good one night or whatever, you can catch up on the reading during the weekend. But like I said, don't wait till the very last minute to do all of the readings. But some law students do that. It works for some people. Never worked. It doesn't, yeah, didn't work for me. But I would say just kind of do it in moderation. I studied a lot, like I said, with the commutes. Found myself studying more on weekends than during the week. I usually got ahead for the week and did all my readings for the next week on the weekend, just so I didn't have to worry about that at night because I was usually too tired by the time I got home to do my readings. But for some students, what worked better for them is doing all the readings as they went during the week and having more time for themselves on the weekend to kind of give themselves a chance to breathe. So I think it really depends on the student and the person. And the workload is where you want to be with that. It's kind of choose your own journey, and it really depends on what works for you. I'm a big, like I've said, big proponent of doing the readings and doing them as the semester goes. But yeah, just do what works for you.
Thanks, Kumiko. Any other feedback on the workload from you three? Matt, Marco.
Yeah, I'll say quickly, I think the grand task of one on for me was figuring out what corners I could cut. And I think very quickly you fall into a rhythm. I had a very, very specific rhythm, certainly fall of my 1L, but definitely also in the spring, but certainly in the fall where I knew when I was doing certain readings and things like that. And in the kind of first month, it was like, okay, you get a sense of what professors are really looking for. And I like to say that you never take like a civil procedure class. You take a specific professor's specific civil procedure class. Like there's no generalized way to attack any of these classes in any meaningful sense. And so I found the kind of ways that like, hey, like this, doing a super detailed briefing of this reading is not going to help me, right? And like instead, reading fairly fast, getting the broad contours, and then coming with some thoughts about what I thought was the most interesting part of this case really worked in Crim. Whereas CivPro, it was like he'd ask about really, really specific details for good reason, but I didn't know the reasons going in, so I had to know all the details, right? And I think you kind of get that rhythm and figure out where you can mold your kind of specific study habits. And so I came in hot and was reading every single word multiple times. Like I was ridiculous at the beginning, right? And so my workload felt kind of crazy, but pretty quickly I got a sense of where my time was best spent. And I could loosen up a little bit with how much time in a given day I was actually studying, working, etc. And certainly at the beginning too, I was like getting to know people. So I was in the library, but kind of chit-chatting, right? So I think all of that contributed to a fairly all-encompassing study schedule at the beginning that maybe had gaps for hangout time.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. So we are getting to the end of our little time allotment here. I'll go to this last question that came in. Was how much did pre-law school networking activities, all the stuff you did prior, how much of an impact did that have when securing your internship or just, whatever positions you've gotten through networking?
Sorry, I don't want to overtalk, guys, but I will say, I think in general, I understand questions like these, and it's like all of the job stuff I totally understand. I think it would be disingenuous to say that any one particular component of an application for any job, be that a public interest job, a big law job, anything in between, a summer internship, all of the kinds of things you will inevitably apply to. It would be disingenuous to say that any one component was particularly important. I was a former teacher. Every interview I've had for every legal job has asked me about why I went from teaching first grade and like talking with kids about how to read to law school, right? I don't know that that's gotten me more interviews or like made me a more compelling candidate. I think that's probably not the case. It's just who I am, right? Like it's the most it like jumps out at you on my resume with like flashing lights because I literally was teaching kids how to add 2+2, and now I'm doing case briefs, right? So all that is to say is I think whatever component speaks most truly to you or is your most compelling, be that any of the things listed in your question, will be the thing that's most important in all of your applications, right? By virtue of it being the most important to you. So I wouldn't lose sleep over that. Do the things you're interested in, build out your narrative and your story as best you can, and talk to the career services people at your schools. They're amazing at every school. So that would be my 2 cents there. I wouldn't lose sleep over like what's going to be the best part. Something will be the best, and that's enough.
Yeah, and also relishing in the fact that you've made it this far. So regardless of what, I assume you had similar hesitations and fears when applying for law school, and now here you are. So just like accepting that you're just in this journey. I'm going to close out this panel with one question, which I love in the anonymous here was the first one that came in. What's the dress code of law school?
This is a good one.
I know.
Actually, my student, one of the student ambassadors that I had when I toured for my accepted students day answered this question for me. So the first month is usually like when people kind of dress like lawyers, they're kind of in their Legally Blonde moment. And then after that, it kind of transitions into much more casual, like sweatpants to class sort of thing. So that's kind of the dress code that I've seen. But obviously for events, there's various dress codes. But from a class perspective, people dress like lawyers for like the first month. And then like after that, they kind of give up. So that's kind of what I've seen at least.
Any other experiences?
Yeah, I don't even think I ever dressed like a lawyer. I think jeans are fine, leggings, workout clothes, look appropriate. You're still going in front of professors and people that you are going to be working with. But at my school, there was no dress code. So great question, though.
I was going to say, Phoebe, like based on what Kumiko said, it sounds like you can start in sweatpants because we're all going to end up there eventually. So like you can start confident if you want. But maybe we won't suggest that. So Matt, Marco, Phoebe, Kumiko, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay on if there's time at the end for more questions, but I recognize that you're all busy. So with that, I will unpin you from the spotlight here. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you guys, and feel free to connect, on LinkedIn or whatnot, and we're all happy to help.
That's a real quick question before you jump. I heard someone saying that they transferred and they had to work. But I've got the name. Do you mind telling me who that person is, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's me, Marco Caprioni.
Oh, great. How to spell the last name? I want to click with you on LinkedIn if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Caprioni.
All right. Thank you so much, Marco. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're in the last block of this program. We're going to bring on our subcommittee members to provide some feedback from more of the administrative side of things. So our subcommittee, I don't know if Rosemary mentioned, is made up of almost mostly law school deans and staff. And so we have them here. First of all, what are your thoughts on what their students are wearing to class these days?
Actually, I'm going to chime in on this one. Thanks, Jen. I would say the only thing to pay attention to is your orientation schedule. At Albany, we have a day where we ask you to wear business attire. We have a very nice ceremony where you will take a pledge, and we have a federal judge that comes in, and it's really nice. And you don't want to be the only one not wearing business attire. But other than that, I mean, I think orientation is typically a little bit more business casual, right? I think you will be meeting people, alumni, professors, staff, and but I think it's important to be comfortable, right? You're going to be in class and be comfortable. And if you're coming to Albany, bring layers, because we have a beautiful old building, but sometimes the temperature regulation is a little challenging. So that's all I'll say about dress code. But I have other things, but I'll share with someone else. Please share on dress code.
Well, we don't have to focus on that too much longer. Lynn, I know you, so Lynn is again, one of our committee members, works at New York Law School and teaches a mindful lawyering class. So we'd love to hear some takeaways from you, Lynn.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say how wonderful it is to be in community with everyone, and our wonderful student panel offers so much insight, very practical, and things that can really guide you in your journey. So one thing I will say is the theme seemed to be there is not one size fits all, and really take that to heart. Um, that I think the one thing that is a constant is law school's wonderful, but it's not easy. So if the person sitting next to you, gives off the impression that it's easy, it's not easy, and there'll be ups and downs, right? But it's really a very individualized journey. Um, and it can change. And I think some of our panelists mentioned that it can change. So getting the most out of that journey, being present in the moment, which is part of mindfulness, being present in the moment with an attitude of non-judgment, just taking in the experience, focusing, you'll learn more effectively if you're focused and attentive, and you'll find more joy. I like to tell my students, the experience goes by really quickly. You may not think that right now, but it does. And it's really wonderful in a lot of ways. So, really savoring everything, being in the moment, savoring it, can help you with your learning and finding that joy. And I'll end with gratitude, right? So, I tell my students this too. Those hard times when you're studying for an exam, or you may be confused, you will be confused at times. Everyone is. I do it when I'm grading exams, not secret. That's not the professor's favorite thing, grading the exams. I remind myself and tell my students we're very in a very special space, right? Where we get to study law, we get to teach law. It's really quite extraordinary that we're in this space, and it's an exciting time. So I think gratitude practice can help you to lean into that in those difficult moments.
Thank you, Lynn. And Lauren, I know you had some things you wanted to add. Lauren works at Pace University.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Just thank you to the students for being so candid and communicative about what we should all be thinking about. For those of you who are on this call before law school starts, which is, I think we've got still 80 folks with us, you're well ahead of the game. It's fantastic that you're taking time out of your day to do this. These pillars that are up on the screen right now, are a great way to organize your thoughts about your wellness, especially when you're feeling stressed. You can just pull this slide out and think, where can I support myself? A few tips that came to mind as I listened to the students, I thought about occupational wellness because in some sense, for those of you who are working part-time or are full-time students, your occupation is being a law student. And one of the things that I didn't do enough of in law school and I learned to do over my career is to celebrate my wins. I thought because it was my occupation to do well in law school and to join clubs and publish articles and get those internships, it was expected of me, and therefore it wasn't something to celebrate. And this really doesn't fill up the joy bucket sufficiently. And celebration of what you accomplish is a great way to also socially connect with everyone who helped make that accomplishment possible. Because oftentimes we're working on teams, or someone has mentored us and helped us, or we have mentored someone else. So it's just a piece of advice I'd offer out is to not take oneself and one's work for granted, and notice it. I'd love to highlight also the emotional wellness bucket. I think a lot of us come to law school and a couple of the students mentioned it. If you're getting into law school, it's because you're super competent, you're super accomplished. You may have had a 4.0 your whole way through or something close to it. And you may not have been the person asking for help along the way. In fact, it may have been people asking you for help. And another amazing way to stay emotionally healthy in law school is to help people and to ask for help. Some of my my strongest friendships, my strongest networking experiences, and those who I admire the most out of my law school class and did the best were amazing at giving help and asking for help. So one thing I wish I had been told going into my 1L year is challenge myself to find like 3 times in my 1L, the first semester, where I asked for help. And I think it would have opened me up and made me a much stronger person from the get-go as a law student and then going into being an early career lawyer. And then if I can just one more thing on the physical wellness, because it was kind of embedded in a lot of what was being said, but I want to use the word sleep. Sleep is so critical to being a fantastic student, and no one's going to protect your sleep but you. I've said that to several students along the way who, when they come to me and they feel really emotionally strained, and I had to say, are you protecting your sleep? No, nobody's going to get that done but you. And so I just remind you how critical it is to making law school fun is getting a good night's sleep along the way. So I think that's a few thoughts I had from hearing the students.
Thanks, Lauren. Rosemary, I know you had thoughts. Was there anyone else from the subcommittee that wanted to speak? Oh, I knew you couldn't stay silent, Rosemary.
Right, I said I would, but the thing that I've heard a lot about is the asking for help. And I wanted to touch on something that one of the students mentioned about how when he asked for help, the person that he asked turned out to be very helpful, even though he had a reputation as being someone very chill. People like to be asked to help. I think that's something that you should keep in mind. You shouldn't be hesitant about asking for help because people like to do that, or they like to tell you where you can get the help if they can't do it themselves. So I think that's important to know because thinking back on my own law school experience, which is a lot of long years ago, I might have been very shy about asking for help because not realizing that people are interested in doing that. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about you might need help, that people will be very happy to help you.
Thank you, Rosemary. You have a lot of wisdom that is very welcome. Thank you.
Jen, can I just add?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is a little bit of echoing a lot of what other people have said, but I love that one of the panelists, I love this quote, this comparison is the thief of joy. I think it was Phoebe. I love that. And I just want to say, just sort of along those lines, for you all to be kind and patient with yourselves, right? Like you want to know everything as soon as you start. Like in the first week, you're going to be like frustrated. You don't understand everything about everything that happens in every class. Like, no, that is, you wouldn't need to come to law school if you knew everything in your first week, right? So embrace it as a process, but also be kind, celebrate the little accomplishments, like, oh, I really did understand that case. That's great. That's exactly what you want to celebrate and focus on. And obviously, if you're having trouble, then like we've all suggested, go talk to your professor, go talk to your teaching assistant. They do want to help. And then, just in terms of the comparison, really think about yourself. Why are you in law school? What are your specific goals? Like what is it that you, and make sure they're realistic goals, right? So why are you there? What is it that you want to accomplish? It doesn't matter if someone else has a different goal than you. You're there for you, right? You're not there for somebody else. You're not there to prove what somebody else wants you to do. You're there for you, and you all have different reasons, and all very good reasons. So just try to reflect on that, and remind yourself of that. Thanks, Jen.
Wendy, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up about asking for help. I used to work at both Pace Law School and Hofstra Law School, and all law schools have tremendous resources that are available to you, whether it's academic advising, whether it's student affairs, whether it's a counseling services that are part of your university or maybe part of your law school, or maybe they utilize an outside support program. But it's really important to know that whatever it may be, even if it's about somebody had a question about like a job and resume and so on and so forth, your career counseling office, all of these services are there to support you. It's part of your tuition, and you should really recognize that it's there for you to take full advantage of. And beyond your law school, and I guess, Jennifer, maybe you'll be alluding to this, is about the various LAPs that are out there for those people that might be struggling with maintaining their well-being or mental health. Every bar association has a lawyer's assistance program that can help provide and support, and it's confidential and it's free. And just a plug for that.
Thanks, Wendy. And Marta, did you have one last thing to add?
Sure, I'll just last minute chime in with thinking about maybe as you start law school, as Rosemary said, what are the values and reasons why you're there? And yours could be very different than others, and just be happy for other people's reasons, right? It's perfectly fine for you to have your own ideas, and sometimes you get ideas from other people in law school, but to put an action plan and to think about sort of why it is you're there, what's important to you, what values do you have, and then making a little bit of an action plan about, like, so if I'm interested in criminal justice reform, maybe I do some volunteer work, or I go talk to the faculty member who runs the law clinic at my law school. I think about what projects are in like, is there a local innocence project? So just thinking about, how to put those values into action can be helpful. And it also, I think, imbues in you, creates a community of like-minded people that you'll seek out. And it also is helpful for your sort of trajectory as you think about your career. And so that's it. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Marta. Yeah, that's great. And so something that comes up a ton for our attorney well-being programs, certainly not just for students, is that concept of personalized goals. Rosemary, you even said that they have to be like realistic. So if you've heard the term SMART goals, that's something we're trying to like lean into. Not only are they specific, measurable, attainable, realistic and timely, but they're also really personalized to you. And so we do have a couple resources that I just wanted to make aware of, and these will get emailed out to everyone, but a self-assessment aligned with all of our 8 pillars here to really get you feeling like you have a stable framework, an idea of like where your 8 pillars land, so you understand your baseline. Because I think what also is very common, again, not just for students, is this idea of I am tough, like I'm fine. So what if I've been doing 4 all-nighters in a row studying, like I still woke up and made it to class? So I think we are really, really good at ignoring signs for help, and to a point that it's too late. So something we're trying to do with our attorney well-being program is also being able to observe fluctuations and being able to pay attention to some of those sensor lights that might be going off for us in all areas that are telling us, hey, something might be wrong. We want to catch those early on. And so with that, I did just want to acknowledge, and we've talked so much, we have students that are going to be taking classes at night and then working full-time jobs, students that likely have families that they're taking care of, just so many other things. Kumiko as a commuter and a first gen, there's just all these different factors. So just recognizing that you are a human, you're also an iceberg, you have a lot below the surface. And so just maintaining that self-awareness of how you're going to take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself and you're just kind of letting law school encompass you and letting that stress take over, we can see how those pillars start to deteriorate. And we certainly don't want that to happen. So that's kind of our aim with the Attorney Wellbeing Program and the 8 pillars, is to make it a more strategic approach. It's not about just saying you need to do self-care and you need to find balance. It's actually figuring out what that means for you. So Wendy just mentioned, what do I do when I actually need support? So if it's a point where you're in crisis, maybe needing to talk to someone right now, the Lawyer Assistance Programs, the State Bar Association, we have a hotline that's available 24/7, so that can be accessed. The City Bar and the Nassau County Bar also have services as well. Each school, it's been mentioned, has tons of services available. Just any professor that you have, I promise people want to be supportive of your journey. And then in terms of networking and connecting, some of the stuff we have going on, we have a Tuesday co-working group where it's just a group of lawyers, mostly in New York, but it's not limited, where we just get on screen and work together. So that's a perfect opportunity for a law student to join, build community, and just study for 2 hours. We have a monthly self-care group, bi-weekly tapping group. So looking at the mind-body connection and tapping on pressure points to relieve stress. And then we have a Friday meditation as well. So again, just trying to build up community and authentic connection. There's so much that's thrown out at you. Matt mentioned it way in the beginning, just finding the right tool for you. Just try these things out. They're really low stakes. A lot of, not just these groups, but a lot of the offerings. I think Kumiko mentioned a painting night. Okay, you wasted one night painting. Like, it's not the worst thing you've done in life, probably. So with that, we wanted to keep it short and sweet. Rosemary, I'll turn it back to you, but also wanted to open the floor to final questions from the participants as well. But Rosemary?
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so just one last thing on the support is oftentimes students don't appreciate, every school has a dean of students or student services office. Conversations you have with those people are confidential, right? So, you know, unless there's something reportable that person has to report, and they will tell you that and talk with you about that. But it can be a very small thing, right? Like you have some sort of conflict that's been on your mind. Just it's better to talk to the person. If they can't help you, they'll tell you who to go to, who can help you. But oftentimes I've found that students will come, they'll wait and then say, I wish I had spoken to you sooner. So echoing just all of what's been said, everyone does really want to support, and all of you. So, and also congratulations, right, to all of you for being admitted to law school. It is, you're going to love your experience. It will be challenging, but it is super rewarding. I want to thank the students and recent grads who participated. You guys did a great job, and you have the best information to share. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your summer. And for all of you, really, by joining today, you demonstrated you care about your well-being, and that's huge. And I want to congratulate you for that, because it's really important. And just remember that you think it's important, and try to check in with yourself and remind yourself that it is so important to take care of yourself in law school, in life, right? I mean, this is not unique to law school, these things we're telling you. And many of us, went to law school and now we're back, right? So obviously we loved our law school experience because now we are still in law school and still managing lots of things, right? As professionals, and you will, regardless of the career you choose. So thank you all for being here. And yes, I think we're all happy to answer any questions. If you have
there's one that was in the Q&A
okay,
for our deans or professors. Someone had never taken advantage of office hours in undergrad. And so just for those of us with social anxiety, could you demystify like what it looks like? Does the person need to have a question? Do they need to, have something big, or can they just stop in and say hi?
Yeah, I'll start and then please everyone else chime in. So I teach civil procedure, which is a first year required course. So the Albany Law incoming students, you might be in my class. And I am so happy when people come to office hours. Like, I don't want to sit in my office by myself for an hour. So please go to office hours. And you don't, I think it's productive if you have a question, but it can be, I really didn't understand that case, or can you explain how that case fits into the, general topic of personal jurisdiction? I would say the thing to avoid is to come in and say, I don't understand anything that happened in class today, because that's challenging, right? I mean, if my class is an hour and 50 minutes, it will be hard for me to go through the entire class again. But even if it's one little thing I said, or somebody said, or a question we talked about in class, and it doesn't have to be a very big topic, right? But if even having a little question gets you in the door and more comfortable coming back, whatever works for you. But professors want you to come to office hours.
I think too, it would be good to use, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we had so many questions of people saying like, I'm being pulled in so many directions. I would think office hours would be a great time. You don't have to go there. You're not like, it's not an appointment where you're stuck there for the whole hour, for one thing. So I would think I could drop in, Rosemary, and say, hey, I just want to introduce myself personally and let you know, like, I'm a mom and I have a kid, and like maybe in 2 months I might be in a crisis. And I just want to give you a heads up. And then from then on, if something does come up unexpectedly, you've already laid that groundwork. And I think when we say that communication is key, that's what we mean, is the professors want to know a little bit about you. And I know when I was in undergrad, I really, really struggled. And I had a professor that kind of took notice, and at one point emailed me and just said like, is everything good? You haven't passed in any assignments in 3 months. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize. And then from then on, she was a huge ally to me. And like, that's where my networking, advantages came from. And I wish I let her know a little bit sooner, why I was struggling and how I was struggling. So Lynn, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on office hours.
Yeah, I would echo Rosemary and say I teach evidence, which is an upper level course, but I love when students come to office hours and either just to introduce themselves and tell me what they're doing, or, and with questions. And often don't think any question is insignificant. Often a student's question will help me realize that maybe I wasn't explaining something clearly, that I have to revise the way I'm communicating a point. So, it's really helpful, not only for the person asking the question, but it can be helpful for the whole class. And, you can come in pairs. I have that sometimes. Students, might be hesitant to come alone, so they bring a friend. They're all comfortable coming to me, without a buddy, but that's something you can do as well. And we, as was mentioned previously by Rosemary Bailey, that we love helping students, right? That's part of our job. So people like supporting you, help you. Don't be afraid. No question is too small or insignificant. Yeah.
Excellent. That's great. We did have one more question, which was, I think a great ending point, and I'll first pop it over to Marco and Matt. Matt, if you're still on, of what was your one non-negotiable for like self-care wellness when you were starting law school? Did you have like one thing that you were like, no one's gonna touch this?
Yeah, I called my mom like every day. It was a non-negotiable for me. I spoke to my mom on the phone, either on the walk to school, on the walk back, or like dipped into a study room and spoke to my mom just about every single day. I don't think it has to be your mom, but if there's somebody you want to call regularly, I definitely recommend it.
Well, and that's great too for the checking in and like making sure you're okay. If you just any person that kind of knows you well enough to be able to say like, hey, I think we need to rein it in.
Totally.
You've been acting a little off the rails. So it's really good to one, know yourself, but also have people in your life that you feel like you can trust to kind of keep you on check.
Definitely.
Marco, any thoughts for you?
Yeah, I'd say non-negotiable for me was trying to, you know, get all my work done like by like 7 o'clock. That way I have time to wind down, you know, catch up on my sleep, get in a good sleep routine, you know, watch, you know, games on TV, watch sports. So try to latest 7 o'clock, non-negotiable, and you know, rest up and then go into the next day.
That's great. And being mindful of how productive your time is. I know for myself, like I'd be someone that would say, yeah, I'm going to go to the library for 4 hours. Like, am I actually studying for that 4 hours, or am I doom scrolling social media for 3 of those hours and then beating myself up over it? And then like, could I have actually structured my day to be just an hour of studying and then the other hours could have been more productive? I think our brain just kind of will keep us really confined in certain aspects. So to just not let it play tricks on you. Again, being self-aware is huge. I think that will wrap up our program. Thank you all for staying on. I know we're a little bit late. Anything else from our committee or speakers? I'm getting that shakes and head shakes and waves. So thank you all. I will make this recording available in addition to sending out the self-assessment and the worksheet that we have. So please keep in touch. We're also hoping to launch a monthly student group in addition to the other groups I launched. So that could be a place for everyone to come and just kind of maybe commiserate on their stressors and figure out how we can get over those obstacles. So stay tuned for that. I'll be in touch with you all, but thank you all. Congratulations. And yay, exciting times ahead. So good luck to your future. But we'll be in touch. Take care all.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.